I want you to look at your calendar for a second. Today is Saturday, March 21, 2026.
Yep.
And for most people, it's just a regular weekend, right?
Yep.
But in the world of pharmaceuticals and, well, global healthcare, really, today is the day the dam finally breaks.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge.
It's not just any day. It is the exact day the formulation patent for semaglutide completely expires in India.
And that expiration, I mean, it is triggering an event unlike anything we have ever seen in the industry. We are talking about the biggest generic pharmaceutical launch in history.
Period.
Yeah. It's creating a 50,000 crore rupee market essentially overnight.
Which is just mind-blowing to even wrap your head around. So to guide you through exactly how massive this is, we are pulling from an incredibly detailed piece of source material today. It's called the Semaglutide Playbook by Pranav Kumar from CX Designers.
It's a fantastic breakdown.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission for this deep dive is to give you, the listener, the ultimate shortcut to understanding this massive business and medical phenomenon. Because here's the thing, this isn't just about a drug anymore.
No, not at all.
It's about how companies fight for survival when everyone around them is suddenly selling the exact same thing.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even look at the strategies these companies are using, we really need to understand the absolute chaos of the battlefield as of this morning.
Right, and the chaos really stems from a fiercely contested legal backstory. Novo Nordisk, they're the original maker of semaglutide, which, most people know globally under the brand names Ozempic and Wegovy.
Right, the famous ones.
Exactly. Well, they fought until the absolute last minute to protect their exclusivity. But just days ago, the Delhi High Court finally cleared the way for domestic players, like Dr. Reddy's, to begin sales in India.
So the door is wide open.
It is. A formulation patent essentially means the specific recipe for putting this drug into a deliverable form was locked down. And as of today, that lock is officially broken. The starting gun hasn't just been loaded, it has been fired. And the scale of this launch is, well, it's completely mind-bending. The playbook points out that as of right now, we have 31 different companies launching 55 branded generic versions of the exact same molecule.
55. Let that sink in.
Yeah, and they aren't rolling them out carefully over a few months either. This is happening simultaneously, like today.
Which creates an immediate massive problem for these companies, right? Differentiation. Industry insiders are already calling the market a slum of brands.
I love that phrase, slum of brands. It's so accurate.
Yeah.
Because you look at the names and it's a complete nightmare.
Oh, it's alphabet soup.
You have Semaglide, Semaglin, Semblin, Semaclu, Similup. I mean, it's like you're looking for a specific John Smith in a massive nationwide phone book. If I'm a doctor, my eyes are glazing over immediately.
Completely. And that branding nightmare is bad enough, but the real bloodbath is in the margins.
Oh, let's talk about the money.
Yeah, because before today, the originator brand, Wegovy, was priced around 16,400 rupees a month for obesity. And Ozempic was sitting at about 8,800 rupees for diabetes today. The generics are projecting an entry price of around 3,500 to 4,000 rupees.
Okay, but here's the part of the playbook that actually made my jaw drop. It cites a Stat News analysis showing the actual production cost of generic semaglutide is only about $3 a month.
Yep, $3.
That is roughly 250 rupees. So if I'm a pharmaceutical CEO, right, and I see my production cost is 250 rupees, but the market expects 3,500 rupees, why wouldn't I just be the rogue player who prices it at 500 rupees on day one?
Just undercut everybody.
Yeah, just completely wipe out the other 54 brands before they even get on the shelf.
Well, what's fascinating here is that generic pharma in India doesn't work like a pure consumer race to the bottom, at least not immediately. Because in the early days of a launch, doctors, not patients, are the primary decision makers. If you price a highly complex injectable biologic at 500 rupees on day one, a conservative endocrinologist might look at that and assume your manufacturing quality is compromised.
Oh, I see. It looks too cheap.
Exactly. You actually scare off the gatekeepers. Plus, we have to remember this isn't a fixed pie being divided 55 ways. Semaglutide is a dual market creation event.
Right. It targets both type 2 diabetes and the rapidly growing obesity market.
Right. So by dropping the price to that 3,500 rupee range, they are dramatically expanding the pie, making this therapy accessible to the vast urban middle class in India for the very first time.
Okay, that makes sense. But still, with 55 names that all sound like Semaglin and the exact same active ingredient inside the pen, a company has to do something radical to avoid immediate bankruptcy.
They do. Because the molecule itself is completely commoditized as of today, the only way to survive is to play a completely different strategic game than your competitors.
And the author maps out 6 distinct archetypes of warfare that these companies are deploying, right?
Yeah, 6 very different approaches to the same problem.
Let's look at the most aggressive one first, what they call the volume flutter. Torrent Pharmaceuticals is launching 6 different brands of the exact same drug simultaneously. 6.
That's a massive play.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to push back on this. Is launching 6 identical drugs a genius strategy to completely dominate pharmacy shelf space? Or is it just a spectacularly expensive way to confuse your own sales team and, cannibalize your own sales?
Well, it is a massive risk for exactly that reason. If all 6 brands target the same doctors with the same message, it is just expensive noise. It's self-sabotage.
Right.
However, Torrent has a genuine physical differentiator hidden in that volume. One of those 6 brands is Riblis, which is an oral formulation.
Oh, wow. A pill instead of an injection.
Exactly. And that fundamentally changes the game because it captures an entirely different patient demographic, people who are terrified of needles.
Okay, having an oral version is a huge distinction. That makes sense. But what if you don't have a pill? What if you want to avoid that cannibalization entirely while still targeting both diabetes and obesity?
That leads to the platform player archetype. Sun Pharma is executing this beautifully. They are cleanly separating their brands by indication to avoid any confusion at all.
So they have novel treat positioned specifically for obesity, backed by dedicated Indian clinical trial data, right?
Yep. And then they have Sematrinity positioned entirely for diabetes.
Keeping the messaging totally isolated, that's smart. But, if you're listening to this and you or a family member has type 2 diabetes, you might be thinking this competition is entirely good news. Cheaper drugs, right?
Of course.
But if you're an executive at a smaller pharma company, this density of competition is terrifying. If you don't have Sun Pharma's massive marketing budget to build multiple platforms, how do you even survive?
You become a regional gorilla.
A regional gorilla.
Yeah, these are the niche players who look at the national bloodbath and just refuse to participate. They pick 3 to 5 cities and absolutely dominate them.
So they just ignore the rest of the country.
Pretty much. They build hyper-local relationships with doctors and regional distributors that the national giants just can't match because the big guys are spread too thin.
Okay, but if I'm one of the massive titans, like Dr. Reddy's, and I see these regional gorillas eating up my market share in key cities, how on earth do I counter that?
You deploy the ecosystem builder strategy. Dr. Reddy's is launching brands like Obeda and Dagliton, but they're not just selling a pen.
Right. The playbook mentioned they are investing over 1,000 crore rupees in infrastructure.
Yes. To build what they call obesity centers of excellence, they are selling a comprehensive 36-month long-term play. In a commoditized market, the experience you design around the molecule matters far more than the molecule itself.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're betting a doctor will prescribe their brand because of the wraparound support system.
Yeah.
But a 1,000 crore rupee investment is staggering. And building physical clinics and ecosystems takes years. If I am launching today, March 21, and I need a massive competitive moat right this second, a 36-month plan doesn't help me win today's prescriptions.
Which brings us to the device innovator and alliance architect. This is the partnership between Zydus and Lupin. And their deal was signed on March 17th, literally just 3 days ago.
Talk about down to the wire.
Seriously. So Zydus brings an indigenously developed, reusable, adjustable pen, which makes the physical injection much easier for the patient. But Zydus needed immediate scale.
And Lupin has that scale.
Exactly. Lupin brings a deeply entrenched network of over 10,000 doctors in cardiology and endocrinology. So Zydus didn't have to spend 5 years building a new sales force, and Lupin didn't have to spend years on device R&D.
They instantly combined forces to bypass the waiting game.
Right.
That is a brilliant piece of corporate maneuvering. But let's bring this down to the clinic floor for a second. All of these brilliant corporate strategies, whether you are building a 1,000-core ecosystem or signing massive alliances, they are completely useless if the medical sales representative walks into a clinic and uses the exact same generic pitch for every single doctor.
Yep, the last mile problem.
Right. Because today, every single sales rep in India is going to walk into a clinic and say, "Doctor, try our semaglutide."
And it becomes white noise instantly. To break through, the playbook argues that companies must shift to an 8-archetype profiling model for healthcare professionals, or HCPs. You have to fundamentally understand the difference between the gatekeepers and the multipliers.
Let's break those down. Who are the gatekeepers?
The gatekeepers are the 8 to 10,000 endocrinologists in India. They are the top-tier specialists who will write the early prescriptions, set the safety protocols, and, deeply analyze the clinical data.
And the multipliers.
The multipliers are the general physicians who manage the bulk of India's 101 million diabetics. You simply cannot speak to a specialized endocrinologist the same way you speak to a busy family doctor seeing 50 patients a day.
No, of course not. It's like trying to sell a complex software update.
Right.
The tech-savvy early adopter, they want to see the source code, the data dashboards, and the beta features.
Yeah.
But the legacy IT manager, they just want to guarantee that it won't crash their current servers.
Exactly.
If you hand the legacy manager a beta version, you're banned from the building. The playbook outlines these doctor personas so well. For instance, you have the digital pioneer. This doctor wants app integrations and real-world evidence dashboards.
And then you have the conservative guardian. This doctor operates on a strict first do no harm philosophy. They want massive long-term safety data.
So they aren't jumping on the bandwagon today.
No, they are absolutely not going to prescribe a brand new generic on day one. They might wait 6 months until the safety narrative is clear. Pushing them for an immediate prescription will permanently damage that relationship.
And then there's my personal favorite, the wellness entrepreneur.
Yeah.
This is the totally new frontier for the obesity market.
Mm.
These are lifestyle and aesthetic doctors.
Yep.
They aren't looking at HbA1c diabetes markers. They care about weight loss outcomes, body composition, and patient transformations.
Totally different metric for success.
Right. But wait, if I am a sales rep walking into a busy clinic, I don't have hours to psychoanalyze a doctor. How can I possibly figure out which archetype they are in a standard 90-second conversation?
Well, the playbook outlines a highly structured method where reps don't guess. They measure.
How do they do that?
They use a simple 8-question survey integrated into their first 2 visits to score the doctor across 4 dimensions: evidence orientation, technology adoption, patient centricity, and practice ecosystem. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is about shifting the entire pharmaceutical industry away from broadcast marketing, just shouting your brand name, to persona-matched engagement.
So you match the pitch to the persona, the doctor feels understood, and you secure the prescription.
Exactly.
But the playbook hits us with a massive reality check here. Securing the doctor's prescription is only half the battle. The real boss fight happens when the patient actually goes home with that needle.
This is perhaps the most sobering data in the entire playbook. A landmark Oxford University and BMJ meta-analysis published in January 2026 revealed a clinical reality that pharma companies are terrified of.
What's the number?
50% of patients discontinue GLP-1 therapy within 12 months. Half of them just walk away from the treatment.
Yeah, 50%, half the patient.
Exactly, within the first year.
And the consequences of walking away are brutal. The data shows patients regain weight at a rate of 0.8 kilograms per month. That is an average of 9.9 kilograms regained in just the first year after quitting.
It's a huge rebound effect.
I have to push back hard on this. Hold on. You're telling me people are losing life-changing amounts of weight, effectively reversing their diabetes, and 50% of them just quit because of a tiny needle. That doesn't make logical sense to me. What is actually happening in their homes to make them abandon a miracle drug?
Well, it isn't just the fear of the needle, though that is significant. It is a fundamental failure of experience design regarding how the drug physically affects the body.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Semaglutide is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Broadly speaking, it mimics a hormone in your gut that tells your brain you are full, and it slows down how fast your stomach empties. Because you are essentially hacking the digestive system, you have to titrate the dose.
Meaning, you start with a tiny amount and slowly step it up over weeks so the body doesn't completely freak out.
Precisely. And during that titration phase, patients frequently experience intense, debilitating nausea. Combine that physical sickness with the anxiety of self-injecting a medication at home.
Oh man, that sounds awful.
It is. If their only interaction with the drug is buying it at a busy pharmacy counter and going home alone to figure it out, they drop off the moment the nausea hits. That is why the winning companies won't just sell the molecule. They will implement a therapy initiation concierge model.
I mean, if you've ever been handed a complex medication and just sent home with a folded piece of paper full of tiny text, you know how isolating that feels. What does a concierge model actually look like in practice?
It means providing access to a trained nurse for that critical first injection. It means proactive phone check-ins during those dose escalations when the nausea is at its worst.
So actually holding their hand through the hard part.
Yes, providing specific dietary protocols to manage the side effects and offering genuine emotional support. In a chronic therapy market, the true return on investment comes from the sixth refill, not the first prescription.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
The patient's lived experience is the ultimate competitive moat. If you solve discontinuation, you win the market.
Let's fast forward a bit.
Mm.
We're sitting here in the absolute chaos of day one with 55 brands screaming for shelf space. Where does this market settle a year or two from now? Because the playbook maps out a pretty brutal 24-month fallout.
It does. Between month 6 and month 12, we enter what they call the shakeout. The launch euphoria fades, and aggressive price erosion brutally compresses those early margins.
How low do prices go?
The playbook projects prices could be dragged down to roughly 2,500 rupees as companies get desperate to move inventory. Prescribers will be completely fatigued by the endless parade of sales reps.
I bet.
And moving into month 12 to 24, we see the inevitable consolidation. Those 55 early brands will shrink to just 8 to 12 viable survivors.
And during that consolidation phase, a fascinating structural shift happens, right? The obesity market fully decouples from the diabetes market.
Yes, completely splits.
It stops acting like a tightly controlled traditional pharmaceutical space and starts behaving like a consumer health space. It'll be driven by social proof, lifestyle influencers, and digital health platforms like Tata One and Blum.
Which is wild for pharma. But this raises an important question, especially when we look at the looming threat hanging over all of these generic semaglutide launches. Eli Lilly has a drug called Mounjaro, or tirzepatide. It is a dual agonist.
Meaning, instead of just hitting the GLP-1 receptor like semaglutide, it hits a second receptor as well, compounding the weight loss effect.
Exactly. It offers arguably superior clinical data for weight loss, and it is already India's top-selling drug by value.
Wow.
So if a superior dual agonist drug is already dominating the high end of the market, why are 31 Indian companies investing thousands of crores into launching an older generation generic today?
So what does this all mean? Well, the playbook delivers this brilliant insight. Semaglutide is essentially a gateway molecule. It is training wheels for the entire Indian pharma industry. These companies flooding the market today aren't just fighting over yesterday's scientific news. They're building the muscle memory required for the future.
Absolutely.
They're building the patient support systems, refining the doctor relationships, and stress testing the cold chain supply networks. The real war isn't about semaglutide at all. It is about who controls the infrastructure for tomorrow.
The companies investing in those expensive ecosystems and concierge models today are actually training their entire corporate infrastructure for the next decade of oral GLP-1s and advanced multi-agonists.
Right.
If a company just fights a race to the bottom price war today, they will have to start from scratch when the next major patent expires. If you build the patient ecosystem today, you own the distribution channel for the future.
It's like they're playing three-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Yeah, exactly.
So to wrap this all up, the core lesson of this playbook is profoundly human. At the end of the day, a patient is a person, not a prescription. This is a person who is anxious about injecting themselves, who is exhausted by years of failed diet advice, and who is simply looking for hope. The pharmaceutical companies that design their strategies around dignity and continuity are the ones that will win this massive new market.
Beyond the 50,000 core valuations, the complex corporate archetypes, and the fierce patent battles healthcare is ultimately decided by the patient's lived experience in their own home.
Perfectly said. And I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over. We talked about how, in the obesity segment, the demand engine has moved away from traditional clinics to what the playbook calls Tier 4. We are talking about fitness coaches, nutritionists, and local WhatsApp community groups.
The real grassroots level.
Right. If social proof is what's truly driving the obesity market, what happens when a pharmaceutical company's biggest competitor isn't another pharma giant with a generic clone, but a massive health influencer network that holds all the consumer trust and ultimately decides which brand goes viral?
It completely redefines who holds the power in modern medicine.
Next time you're scrolling your social feeds, look closely at the health and fitness content you're seeing. You might just be looking at the new front line of the pharmaceutical industry. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the starting gun of the semaglutide revolution. Keep an eye on your calendars, because the race that started today is going to change everything.